Praise and worship has already begun here at the Rhema Bible Church North in Randburg in Johannesburg. Those are live visuals that you're seeing of proceedings that are currently underway. A giant of the faith, a pioneer and a leader of the charismatic Christian church. As I tell you, from far and wide, they've come to pay homage to the late Pastor Ray McCauley. And just a few moments ago, what we saw was some videos that were played from pastors from far and wide, from the continent, from the rest of the world. Everyone who certainly had that indelible mark made by Pastor Ray McCauley on their lives. And I can certainly say millions of people as well that were inspired by this man of the faith, not only on the pulpit, but also away from the pulpit, very concerned about South Africa, the poorest of the poor. And I keep repeating this because this is what has resonated over the past couple of days with regard to the kind of man that Pastor Ray McCauley was. My understanding at this point, just getting a brief from some of those who are part of the proceedings, is that the cortege is still at the home of the late Pastor Ray McCauley at the moment, and it will be making its way to the Rhema Bible Church North here in Randburg in Johannesburg. In just about a moment, we'll bring you those live visuals. But we've heard from many people who've been greatly inspired by this man of the faith, this man of God. And one of those individuals is a Bishop Mosa Sono, who joins me this morning. Bishop, it really is an honor to have you seated next to me this morning. And what a day of celebration, but also mourning. And you are one of those people who have had a very long history with this church. It started in the school.
Yes.
It went to the mail room.
Yeah.
There's just so much that you can tell us. Let's look back to your journey with this church and your relationship with the late Pastor Ray McCauley.
Well, Chriselda, thank you for the opportunity. Indeed, it's quite a day of celebration, but also it's a day of mourning. It's a day of sorrow. I think for some of us, given how close we were to Pastor Ray, I must be honest, I've cried every day this week. I guess what comforts one is that he lived a life of purpose. I started in the Bible school. I was in the class of 1981 and 1982, in the very early days of Rhema, when it was still at the Tony Factors in Randburg.
Yes.
And I attended school there. In my first year, I was fortunate enough to get a job here at Rhema, working in the mailing room, in the wholesale department, in the bookshop, and several other things that I did there. And I worked there and did my best really to do my work as I could do it. And one of the things that they used to do at Rhema when they had guest speakers, they would give the guest speakers Persian carpets, which I had to try and create a box and a container for.
Wow.
So I'm told that the way that container was so beautiful, Pastor Ray took note of it and Pastor Lindy took note of it. And I remember the one day she comes to this small office, asks me what my name is, and asks me about the box. And I said, yeah, I'm the one who's doing that box. And she said, wow, we love it, you know. I think it is through that box that when they needed an associate pastor to help in the church they had planted in Soweto,
Yes.
they called on me to go and be an associate pastor there with Andre Knutze, who left, and then I became pastor of that church. This is in September of 1983.
Yes.
That's when I started relating with Pastor Ray. Not very close, as in the IFCC, the International Federation of Christian Churches,
Correct.
which I was a part of. But then in the process, I got into the leadership and got to know Pastor Ray.
Yes.
Several things that stand out about Pastor Ray. One, his commitment to the preaching of the gospel. Unadulterated preaching of the gospel. He doesn't mix the gospel with other things. He believes that Christ is Savior, and he preached that. Secondly, you mentioned about his involvement in social issues. He would say the church must be socially significant.
And we've heard a lot about
Oh yeah,
that.
and he went out. And the other thing which was very interesting that I'm going to be talking about today is about the church being prophetically relevant. Remember, Pastor Ray came from a background in the context of our country, of a white privileged person who had no understanding about the socio-political dynamics of this country. And as a result, in his preaching in the early days, he wasn't that aware, didn't emphasize that. But the minute he became aware of that, he did a 360 turnabout and got involved in the socio-political things, became a voice, started relating with people like Bayas Notier, Dr. Frank Chikane, the late Archimeritus Desmond Tutu. I was with Pastor Ray at Buipatong when, at the funeral where there were several people who were massacred. And he became an activist of note. He spoke to political parties, spoke into the issues of the day. But the one thing about Pastor Ray was his ability to mentor people.
Correct.
When you got close to him, you noted that this giant, this lion that roars, had such a soft and tender heart. Very interested in people, no matter your background, no matter what color of skin. So he pioneered really what in the church wasn't usual those days, in having people of all colors sit side by side. And he committed to the gospel to the last day.
Bishop, I wish we had more time, but I really do appreciate you taking time. I know that parts of the service have already started inside. We really do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
On SABC News. Bishop Mosa Sono has had a very long-standing relationship with the Rhema Bible Church, as well as with the late Pastor Ray McCauley. We'll bring you those visuals live as the cortege makes its way inside the auditorium. We understand it's still at the home. Perhaps it might have made its way. Haven't really gotten any more information while we've been on air, but we'll bring you those visuals live of a man who's been described as a giant of the faith and a believer in God, who preached not only from the pulpit but also from the streets around the world.